Hey guys, welcome back to part 3 of the Callous Sorta Plays Emerald Open series featuring Java the Griffin. This is the second match in our battle pool. We played against Lax in the first one. Go back and check that out in the previous video if you haven't already seen. The second battle was against the only person in the battle pool that I had not heard of before this, which is Snake. Goes by Kenny. As it turns out, we are playing probably as close as we're going to have throughout the whole tournament to a mirror match. We have 3 identical pokes in the Raikou, the Medicham, and the Regis, and then we have basically the same poke in Donphan and Claydol as far as this matchup is concerned. The only difference between our teams, he's got a Gyarados and a a Gyarados and a Moltres. We have Milotic and Dragonite, and obviously Corsola and Myena are not going to come into play the same way that Caterpie and Magikarp are not going to come into play. So this is a very different matchup than Lax. First of all, he has no Spiker. So for once, we do not have to bring Rapid Spin with Donphan, and that frees it up to do some other stuff. So looking at the threats, he actually has quite a few. Raikou is a threat for sure, and I thought it was a priority in the building to make sure that that is very well covered with multiple layers of protection, as you're going to see when I show you the team. The Gyarados is also a potentially dangerous Pokemon. We have a couple pokes, Raikou, Dragonite, Regis that can all learn electric attacks, and they're certainly going to carry that, so they can threaten the 4x weakness on Gyarados, but it's still, even with that, under certain circumstances, could be threatening. For example, if the Gyarados already gets a Dragon Dance off, then Raikou really isn't an answer for it anymore, because we're going to be outsped, he's going to have +1 EQ, and bam, Raikou's dead. So even though Raikou on paper is kind of sort of an answer, Gyarados threatens us as well, so we really need multiple layers of protection against that. Milotic, for example, is something that Gyarados, with most sets, can very easily set up on, and we didn't want to let that happen, so we actually opted for Hidden Power Electric on Milotic, strictly as a precaution for the Gyarados. It really has no other purpose in this matchup. It hits Moltres, but obviously you would just hit that with Surf instead. As far as his Raikou, we loaded up on special defense on our Donphan to make sure we could take Raikou hits, and obviously threaten it back with Stab EQ. We actually went with a set for our own Raikou designed to deal with his Raikou and to just be a general nuisance to his team. And then the Moltres is something we should be able to wall forever with the Milotic, but again, I wanted to make a point to have electric attacks all across the team, so we're able to threaten that as well. The Medicham is a little trickier, and we had to give at least the Dragonite a flying attack as a way to threaten it. We really don't have fantastic switch-ins to Medicham, but I'll show you what we did to handle it. So here's the team that we came up with versus Snake. So first of all, we felt that we had to lead with Dragonite because we didn't want him to lead with Medicham and just have a freebie. And we thought that Dragonite was the only thing that could realistically check it or scare it away. We could have let our own Medicham, but that's very dangerous. You could just walk right into a speed tie, which could go very badly. We also could have gone with Donphan, and you can play a game where you just click counter, but that can go badly because they can just click substitute. I'm not sure. You could go for Roar, and they could just hit you with a CB attack, and then you roar them out. There's a lot of ways that Donphan can go badly. I don't know that Milotic really beats Medicham, especially if he goes for a CB set or something along those lines. Our own Medicham, we went Jolly Max Speed, and that is strictly to tie at worst or be ahead of the opposing Medicham. I thought it was very important to do that. This set of Dragonite is kind of designed to hit everything. So the Thunderbolt is obviously for the Gyarados. The HP Flying is very, very necessary for the Medicham. And then the EQ is, of course, for the Raikou, but it can randomly hit some other stuff as well, but the Raikou is the primary one. But basically the thought is he doesn't have anything that switches in super happily, to that particular set of Dragonite no matter what he does. Claydol isn't like super duper threatened by anything, nor is Moltres, but we can hit them for more than nothing. And like I said, I thought it was an obligatory lead because it was the only thing that I was comfortable with, as always, always, always checking the Medicham, which I made a point to get ahead of speed-wise as well. And as you can see, we went with max special attack to really nail the Gyarados and make sure we're one-hit KOing it with the Thunderbolt. It's a lot more dangerous if he gets another Dragon Dance off because we come up short on the KO. This Raikou, we went full defense here. Full HP, full special defense, not using it as a sweeper whatsoever. This is very much designed to beat the other Raikou. Roar Toxic is a combo that the other Raikou shouldn't be able to overcome. If he is a substitute set, for example, we should be able to roar it out. If he's a rest set, we should be able to Toxic him and then roar him out. But no matter what combo he is, or if he's Calm Mind 3 attacks, for example, alright, we'll get you with Toxic. But no matter what kind of Raikou he is, this set should neutralize the other Raikou pretty effectively, and anything else is secondary. But as it turns out, this Raikou can also provide a secondary special wall for the Moltres, which very well may matter if something bad happens to the Milotic. Regice, which is our usual special wall, is not going to be great against Milotic, or against Moltres, obviously. So I thought that having Raikou as a secondary layer of special protection was really important in this particular matchup. Like I said, I felt obligated to go with HP Electric on Milo in this case because we couldn't let the Gyarados free set up. Interestingly, the 12 special attack actually makes a difference in this matchup. I don't remember what the exact calc is, but took just a little smidge away because I decided that that number mattered, but I don't remember why. We don't have Ice Beam on Milotic, and I don't feel too bad about that. It's really not that exciting into his team. Against Raikou, you'd rather Surf. Against Gyarados, we have HP Electric. Against Claydol and Moltres, you'd rather Surf. Against Medicham, you'd rather Surf. And against Regice, you'd rather Surf. There's really nothing here at all that you want to hit with Ice Beam, so I didn't feel like I was missing it. The Milotic set felt like it was correct. For the Dawn here, so, like I said, it's not obligated to spin. Earthquake and Toxic are just generically safe moves. We loaded up again on special defense. This is again making sure that we can take Raikou hits and hit it back. HP Ghost is not exciting in this matchup, but we thought that it was the best neutral hidden power here. It's going to be super effective against both Claydol and Medicham. Something like HP Rock, yes, it does get the Gyarados and it does get the Moltres, but it is also resisted by the Doll and the Medicham, and we didn't want that. Something like a Refresh Doll, for example, if we had gone EQ, HP Rock, Toxic, we would be completely walled by the Claydol if it had Refresh, and we didn't want that. And we certainly didn't ever want to give the Medicham free possibilities of coming in. Medicham, like I said, is one of, if not the most dangerous Mons that he has. So we made a point to have multiple layers of coverage and never give it free opportunities. So we thought that HP Ghost made sense in that regard. And then Rock Slide is there to be there, but it's not going to come up very often. It's just lack of something better to do. We could have gone with like Substitute or Protect or something along those lines, or Roar. We thought Rock Slide, to not give Moltres any freebies, was worth it, but it's not a move that excites me in this particular matchup. And certainly after Intimidate, it wouldn't be that great against Gyarados either, but again, it's the fourth move. It's better than the other options, in my view. Medicham, like I said, we went Jolly Max Speed because it's super duper important to have as much advantage against the other Medicham as possible. And then this set I thought was rather cute. This is, I think, the only time throughout the whole run that we ended up using Sub Punch on Regice, but it makes a lot of sense here. Once you get the Substitute off, he doesn't actually have a fantastic switch to Bolt Beam Sub Punch. It actually threatens the whole team, as you can see. And as it turns out, so we EV'd it. The 4 special defense here is not random. It is actually the magic number to where if you have max HP in the 4 special defense, it makes it so HP fire from a max modest opposing Regice cannot pop your sub. So that makes it so if we get a sub up against the opposing Regice, his HP fires won't break it, and we can start firing away with Focus Punch, which hurts it quite a bit. So this is a little bit of tech for the Regice mirror, which I feel very confident. Like, even if he was, whatever, say, Ice Beam, T-Bolt, HP Fire, Rest, or something along those lines, or Call Rest, Thunderwave, whatever you want. If he was a set like that, we would clearly win that one-on-one because he couldn't break our subs, and we would start nailing him with Focus Punch. And if we happen to get a substitute on a switch against anything, look at the team. What is switching into Bolt Beam Focus Punch coverage? It can threaten everything. So it felt like the correct set for the matchup. And that's pretty much it. That was our game plan. We went for multiple layers of both Raikou and Medicham coverage because those are by far the biggest threats. We took precautions against the Gyarados, didn't want to let it free set up on anything. We made sure that we had threatening moves against anything that could threaten us, and we EV'd to make sure we don't get blown out by the most common attacks that they're going to have. And this is how that game went. We will again switch the sides for continuity. Trainer Orange, Jabba on the bottom. And unsurprisingly, Kenny, which is Snake, 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 he's going to lead with the Medicham, which is why I didn't want to lead our own Medicham, because it would be such an awkward turn one. We're probably maybe faster, right? Because we're max speed Jolly, but what if he's also max speed Jolly? You also have to be aware, not in Medicham on Medicham specifically, but you also have to be aware that Medicham has the sub reversal set, which can get really ugly. I thought it was very, very important right out the gate to threaten Medicham. So we have this Dragonite that outspeeds it and will kill it with Hidden Power if he stays in, which he's smart enough to not. So he goes to Gyarados. There's the obligatory Hidden Power. That crit obviously was lucky, but the Toxic was weird there, and he's just going to let us kill Gyara. It must not have been a rest Gyara, or he obviously wouldn't have let that happen. The Toxic here, we don't have Bell this time. Dragonite's the only thing that can bring it, and you know that we don't have it this time. So the Toxic is there to stay, but that is obviously nevertheless a good trade for us, just trading him on completely in exchange for Toxic. We can't stay here, obviously, with the 4X weakness and the Stab Ice Beam potentially coming, but we do have multiple things, such as our own Raikou that can wall this, or our own Regice. We go to Raikou. Ice Beam, not that great, 22%. Remember, we're full HP and special defense here. I thought the Raikou as a full-on special wall made a lot of sense in this matchup. Toxic and Ice Beam, we go to our own Regice. This is a really good opportunity to get a substitute off. He's got the Toxic ticking on him. He's incentivized to switch out here. It's not even that exciting for him to click HP Fire, because if he anticipates that we have HP Fire, for example, sure, we'll go blow for blow with you. You're already Toxic. This isn't going to end well. So it's very hard for us to not get a free substitute somewhere in here, which we obviously should take advantage of. So Jabba sets this up pretty well by landing this Toxic and then getting out of the way to Regice. It makes sense to me with the sequencing. And there's the sub, and we can just start firing away. In this case, the best thing we can do is Ice Beam. 40% is a good chunk. I think we could stay in here pretty safely. He's got his own Toxic, so he might have a set very similar to the one that we have for Raikou. We catch a Lucky Freeze here, which obviously matters, and we go to Focus Punch, which is a great play in case he goes to his own Regice here, which we're going to get for about a third, and then we're both still poisoned. He sneaks Medicham back in, and we get him with T-Bolt. We see that he has lefties, so we now know that he doesn't have the reversal set. That's good. And he's going to go for a cover, which I don't think is great. I think his Medicham in this matchup probably wanted to be 4 attacks or substitute 3 attacks. I mean, he clearly built the team defensively. I think he's got the same Raikou set or very similar to what we have. He's got Toxic on Gyarados rather than being the DD sweeper that we thought that it might be. And it looks like his Regice might be built defensively as well based on the damage that he's shown us. So I think he was actually trying to outstall us here, which is an interesting take on the matchup. But I don't know about the recover on Medicham, because even if he's at full health, we can one-hit KO him with Dragonite. And I think a lot of our stuff, even with him having recover, can just like 1 or 2 hit KO him pretty safely. Our own Medicham can 1-hit KO him. Dragonite can 1-hit KO him. And then all of our special stuff, I think, can 2-hit KO him as well. So recover doesn't make a ton of sense to me, especially when you're never recovering off residual damage either, because we don't have spikes. So I think I probably would have gone a different way with this, but carry on. So out of the way he goes, and Raikou is going to survive, which is going to get a little more toxic damage on Dragonite, but obviously we're lucky in the first place to have the freeze. We do stay in and risk it here. I don't think, based on his set, that he was ever going to have HP Ice. I think he was a bulky rest set, so I agree with Jabba just going for the attack there. I think the worst case is he just gets a rest off, so who cares? Milo comes in and is going to completely shut off the Claydol. Wouldn't even die to Boom. We get out of the way of what could be a Thunderbolt, and it is, like I said, full HP, full special defense, 7%. That Thunderbolt barely negates leftovers. And interestingly, the Regice doesn't seem to have rest, so I'm really, truly not clear what sets our opponent had here, but I'm kind of puzzled by some of these choices. Milotic comes in, very safe. He does make a good double to Medi, and now it makes sense why he's recovered. He's got this bulk upset, but you're seeing right now the problem with that. Even with recover, we'll just sit here and surf him, and it's a very comfortable 2-hit KO. And he could do this all day, but eventually we're going to find a crit and he's just going to die. So he says fuck it, and he attacks. Even with +1, we take the Brick Break, no problem, and then Surf gets him. The recover really did not seem exciting to me. I don't know what it accomplished in this particular matchup. I don't like the Medicham set that he settled on. So here comes Ice Beam on the doll. He's only got the 2 pokes left. This one is kind of a stomp. EQ, sure, there's the beam, and he's down to just the Moltres. Sun makes it like mildly threatening, but we're just too far ahead. Flamethrower there comes up short, even with the Sun, the burn, cool. But there's the Toxic, which is going to all but kill the Moltres unless it's rest, and even then, we've got a healthy Milotic in the back. Jabba's just going through the motions here. He's going to go to Donphan to speed this up. Rock Slide obviously kills the Moltres with a 4x weakness if it hits, which it does. Flamethrower nowhere close to killing us since we were so special defense invested on the Donphan. This one, not super close. Jabba's going to take it comfortably. So that's going to put us at 2-0 in our battle pool, and that makes it so basically no matter what happens from here, we're going to go through to the bracket stage, the knockout stage. Now, you still want to win, for sure, because you get a bye if you go 3-0, whereas if you go 2-1, you have to actually play an additional match, which is very dangerous potentially. So you're incentivized to get that third win. The only person we haven't played against yet is Sosa, but unfortunately, we never did get the chance to. Sosa didn't play against anybody, and he took the activity loss against all members of our pool, and therefore Jabba, after 2-0ing legitimately, got bumped up to 3-0 just via the activity win on Sosa and won his pool 3-0 and therefore got a bye in the next round, which is really, really helpful. But we did have a team prepared for Sosa. I don't have a replay that I can show you, obviously, because the match never happened. But we can at least briefly talk about the team and what we would have done had that happen. So if we look at Sosa here, his team is actually fairly threatening. Salamence, as we discussed in the draft video, we're going to load up on ice attacks. Anytime we're against a Salamence or Dragonite, we're just going to hose the crap out of it in that way. Bolt Beam coverage as a whole, which our team has a lot of. Dragonite can do it, Regice can do it, Raikou can do it. Bolt Beam coverage as a whole is very strong against Sosa. It hits so much of the team. It nails Mence, it nails Vaporeon, it nails Sceptile. Porygon 2 is like neutral. It doesn't love or hate Bolt Beam, but like if you were to go say Bolt Beam sub Focus Punch on Dragonite, that's something that nothing on his team can switch into. The Porygon 2 gets hosed by the focus punches, for example. The Hariyama is mildly threatening, and the Sceptile offensively, actually, is potentially very threatening, depending on the set. If, for example, he had something like Substitute, Focus Punch, Leaf Blade, Earthquake, or HP Ice, or something to that effect, it's actually very difficult for us to switch into, so the Sceptile was absolutely a poke that made us nervous and that we had to take precautions for in the builder. And then Hariyama is a poke that you have to respect in this format. It's very versatile. It can have knockoff and be a defensive set. It can be bulk up 3 attacks. It can even learn Belly Drum, which is a dangerous move, though I don't think it's fantastic at pulling it off because it's rather slow, and his team only has the one piece of T-Wave support from the Porygon 2, though of course he can kind of jank parry you with Body Slam or some other means. Salamence also potentially has Wish, as does Vaporeon, so he could go that way, but I think that probably the Sceptile is the overall most threatening Mon from him. Salamence is obviously always a threat, but we can check it, and our team is pretty bulky. Milotic in general is a really good counter to Salamence. Mixed Mence it completely shuts off, and DD Mence Salamence would definitely still need luck to beat Milotic. Timely crit, timely flinch, whatever. Otherwise, Milo holds the fort pretty good, gets him with Ice Beam. So overall, I think we match up pretty well against Sosa's team, other than perhaps the Sceptile. This is a match that I would have loved to have seen played, but we didn't have that opportunity. But let me show you what we would have done had it played out. So we led with Dragonite again, and we had this weird set that just kind of covers everything. Flamethrower, HP Flying, Ice Beam, Toxic. Just a weird hybrid set. But if you look at it on paper, keeping these moves in mind, Flamethrower, HP Flying, Ice Beam, Toxic, and you ask yourself, what switches into this? Not really a lot, right? I mean, the Flamethrower is we needed that for Steelix, because if we had gone Bolt Beam, Toxic, for example, Steelix just walls us forever. So Flamethrower hits him, and it's also super effective on the Sceptile. The Vaporeon gets absolutely wrecked by Toxic because he has no Pokemon on this team that can learn Heal Bell or Aromatherapy, so we knew that Toxic was just a very diverse catch-all threat. The Hidden Power Flying is for the Hariyama. It also just has the bonus of hitting Sceptile, but we already have multiple pieces of coverage for that. But it's largely for the Hariyama. Had we just gone Flame and Ice Beam, Hariyama, one of its 2 abilities alongside Guts is Thick Fat. So it could wall us really, really hard. If he had a defensive set with like Rest and Thick Fat, he would completely blank Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Toxic coverage. So the HP Flying was necessary. Every move has a purpose. It was all very specific in this case. We needed this exact set. And yeah, I thought this was a real menace. I thought this was a real threat for his team. Raikou, we gave it as much speed as it needed and then kept it bulky. Went with a rest set so it could play a pseudo special wall roll and so it could take some hits. But as we discussed in the prep, the Bolt Beam coverage is something that his team just doesn't handle very well. Milotic was relatively straightforward here. Refresh is mostly a precautionary measure just to be safe. It could have been Hypnosis or Toxic or what have you. But we thought that there was enough of a possibility given what the Mons are on the team. Any of these things can have Toxic. Porygon 2 usually carries a status move. We thought Refresh was just a safe thing. We thought, Toxic's very good offensively, without a doubt. But we did not want to lose to the Mence after, letting our Milotic take a Toxic that it didn't need to take. And then he whittles it down in that way, and maybe the Mence gets us when it shouldn't, yada yada. We didn't want to go down that road. So we thought better safe than sorry. We need the Milo to check the Salamence. We're going to stick with Refresh here, even though Toxic is potentially appealing. Dodfan, real boring here. Once again, didn't need to be Rapid Spin because he doesn't have a Spiker. So we just went with this obnoxious Stally set here with Toxic, which we've already identified as a very threatening move against his set. And then Protect and Substitute, which really obnoxious when you're already poisoned, and they have a lot of synergy as well because a lot of the time an opponent might try to switch out, anticipating a protect turn, and that is the perfect opportunity to use sub. So I think those moves actually go really well together. This Donphan is actually pretty difficult for him to switch into. In this case, Metacham does not need Shadow Ball. Looking over the team again, Sosa. There's just nothing that Shadow Ball is particularly appealing against. In fact, it's super effective against nothing. So Rock Slide made more sense in this case. It's not that exciting. It's just that Shadow Ball would be even less exciting. So at least you have the Rock Slide against the Mence, who otherwise is going to resist your fighting attacks. But most of the time, you're just going to be clicking fighting moves. And then we have this boring Regice here. We did not opt for rest in this case. We thought that, again, Bolt Beam coverage was very threatening, so we went with an offensive set here. Modest full special attack. T-Wave is a good move. Again, he doesn't have ways to remove status. Substitute, generically good, but we viewed it as an offensive threat. We do have other things playing the defensive role, but in this case, a hard special wall is not as important as it is in some of the other matches, because there aren't threats like, say, Moltres in the previous match or the other Raikou in the previous match that demand that we play it straight and go with a more defensive set, a more defensive setup. In this case, I thought we could push the tempo and go offensive with Bolt Beam, which we've identified as difficult for him to switch into. Basically, we went with status and Bolt Beam overload in this matchup, and I think he would have had a tough time. There is a world where, depending on the set, his Sceptile is offensively obnoxious to us, but we made a point to have every single poke on our team meaningfully threaten the Sceptile. So obviously all four of these moves really hit the Sceptile, HP Ice, Ice Beam, Toxic, either of the fighting attacks, and Ice Beam. So the Sceptile was never going to come in for free or set up on anything for free. We wanted to make sure everything could get it. And we thought as a whole that we could out-offense him and just have better coverage and better mons, go blow for blow, if it came to it. But like I said, that match, unfortunately, never did happen. He got an activity loss against the whole pool, and Jabba won this battle pool 3-0 and moved on to the bracket stages, which will begin in the next video. If you've been enjoying this Emerald Open content, I appreciate you watching, and I would super duper appreciate you hitting that like button and leaving a comment. I will see you in the next video.